Was a very good morning and a warm welcome to this special series of webinars that we'll be having for the next 4 weeks as we zero in on the issue of attaining sustainable development goals, as well as looking at issues to do with the UN 75 1-minute survey. We'll get to talk a bit more about that. I'm your moderator. My name is McDonald Birura, and with me today from the United Nations, that's the UNICEF actually, we have Amin Yusuf, who is working with UNESCO. He's working there, and his designation there is, let me just say this correctly, he's the advisor for communications and information. We've also got Tafiq El Gotora, aka Digital Bay, who is into the digital space in terms of influence and influencing people to move certain dynamics or agendas on the social media. We've got just Mangwana from the Zimbabwe Youth for Sustainable Development Goals. We've also got Nyari Mashaya Mombe, who is a media entrepreneur as well as women's human rights activist, and Miss Becky, who is a media personality and she is an influencer currently with CFM, as well as doing quite well on consumer, if I might add. And we're just talking about this off air. Jasper Mangwana, aka Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, obviously the way he's wearing his hat this morning. But let's just get this conversation to start with. I'll ask all our panelists with their opening remarks, and I'll start with Amin Yusuf. Just your initial contributions to the conversation.
Okay, thank you very much. I will just talk about two main points. The first one will be the justification for partnerships if we are to achieve the 2030 agenda. And my second contribution will be on why the media is the most important partner for Agenda 2030.
Sorry, Yusuf, I'm just going to quickly jump in. We can hear you, please.
If you look at Agenda 2030, you're actually talking about an agreement among the people of the world for the people, for planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. And when you talk of partnerships, it's actually...
You can continue.
When you talk of partnerships.
Yes, Yusuf. We can. Hello. Yusuf, good morning.
Hello. Yes.
Yusuf, yeah, we can hear you. You can remove the phone now. We can hear you clearly.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And when you talk about partnerships, it is one of the goals, actually, which is goal number 17. And it means that as a global community, we need to mobilize all the means required to achieve Agenda 2030 on the spirit based on strengthened global solidarity, but also focusing on the needs of the poorest and the most vulnerable. And that is why you're talking of leaving no one behind. But this solidarity extends not only to individual citizens, but also to all segments of the society, including the private sector, civil society, and all the other stakeholders. Another strong reason as to why partnerships are important is the integrated nature of the Sustainable Development Goals. In other words, one cannot say, for instance, that one Sustainable Development Goal is more important than the others. In fact, they are all integrated and are inalienable. Also, there is another important factor, and that is the fact that Agenda 2030 came about through a multi-stakeholder approach, which means that even the design of the agenda itself, or Sustainable Development Goals, was accomplished through partnerships. In fact, if you recall very well, the SDGs were created through the largest ever participatory process undertaken by the United Nations.
Mhm.
And if you talk of the numbers, you're talking about 10 million people from all over the world, from all walks of life, who participated in shaping the agenda. So such a huge feat cannot easily be achieved through the efforts of governments in the United Nations only. We need expertise, we need technology, we need financial resources, we need collective efforts from the government, from the private sector, from the academia, civil society, and again, from individual citizens of the world. And when you think about that, media becomes one of the most important partners in stimulating sustainable development. And in my submission here, I'm not only referring to legacy media. This includes all types of media, including online media. Now, how is the media one of the most important partners? One, the media provides a platform for what we call peaceful, gender responsive, and democratic discourse for the citizens. And when we say that, we refer to its many functions. One, to informing citizens about various issues which concerns them, disseminating ideas, information, etc. But also, the media facilitates debates between diverse social actors. And through the media, the society learns about itself. The media is also a watchdog, which monitors the accountability of those who are in public office, but also it monitors the private sector and other non-state actors. The media promotes transparency in public life. It exposes corruption, maladministration, and corporate wrongdoing. I think you all recall recently there was this report from UNCTAD, which talks about Africa losing about 88.6 billion US dollars every year from illicit capital flight. And we are told that figure is almost 50% of the figure needed for Africa to mitigate and adapt, climate change mitigation efforts. So generally speaking, you see that the media is very, very important. If it is one of the partners which can manage maladministration, corruption, etc. But also the media is important in sensitizing and mobilizing and influencing citizens towards a particular direction. Though this role has to be exercised with extreme caution, because if you can't do it properly, then the media can also be divisive. And lastly, let me talk briefly about the challenges of communicating the Sustainable Development Goals. Because the media is not only important in communicating for the achievement of SDG, but also for communicating the SDG goals. There are two things here. One, communicating for the SDGs. Another thing is communicating the SDGs. Let me clarify a little bit about this. We have to be honest to ourselves that there are challenges of communicating the SDGs. One, they are written in professional language, which may not be well understood by the largest majority of our non-elite citizens. But we also have a serious illiteracy problem all over the world. We also have a challenge of too many languages. We have linguistic diversity, which is not, having too many languages is not a bad thing, but the communication or the languages which are most used in the world are approximately 20 languages. The rest, out of this approximately 7,000 languages, are not in use to a much wider part of the world, of the global community. Which means if we want to communicate the SDGs, we have a challenge. And this is where the media comes handy, because through the media, which is existing at the local levels, you can have the communication about the SDGs and for the SDGs done through local languages. And also, when you talk of literacy, I believe the literal meaning of or interpretation of SDGs leaves a lot of people surprised, if not shocked. Let me give you an example. For instance, imagine someone living in a village, and they hear that one of the global goals is to end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition, and of course, promote sustainable agriculture. Imagine if this citizen has slept the previous night without putting anything in their stomach. Will they really understand the Agenda 2030? Will they really understand the Sustainable Development Goals? They will be shocked. So if we want to communicate Agenda 2030, we really need to communicate in such a way that we don't expect the citizen to think that the global community is coming to help them to solve their problems. We really need to communicate the SDGs in such a way that the citizens can associate the development goals to their own environment, and they can also find their own solutions. So one key strategy in attaining the SDGs is in investing in communication that promotes the participation of each and every global citizens in contributing in whatever small means or initiative at their own level, no matter how low that level is. Because the UN and the governments alone cannot and will not be able to mobilize each and everybody to participate. If we don't do that, then it means it's very difficult to achieve the SDG goals. And that brings me back to the importance of partnerships in achieving Agenda 2030. And also, that is why the media is one of the key partners of sustainable development. Let me end up here for the time being. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much.
I think you can go ahead with your sentiments. I think he is coming about. I think we seem to have lost him.
Hello, Nyari.
Did you say Nyari?
Yes, Nyari, you can go ahead and give us your contributions.
Did you say myself or somebody else? Sorry, I can't
Yes,
hear.
you, Nyari. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. So thank you very much for this opportunity. And I think a number of things that I was going to probably allude to have been attached already by yourself. I think for me, some of the key things that come to mind when I think about sustainable development goals is the issue of women and the issue of the vulnerable communities. And how they are engaging. The sustainable development goals are created to develop the well-being of communities and equal development for that matter. So for me, when we are thinking about partnerships, I like to also bring it to myself as a woman, as a businesswoman who decided to get into business after engaging with the civil society, where I continue engaging, by the way, for more than 10 years. And for me, one of the key things about sustainable development
She's breaking. We can hardly hear her now.
partnerships is the unity, which is
We
with
seem to be having
usually
trouble with your audio.
multilateral donors
Yeah,
who Africa in development, especially development aid. And
you know, Nyeri?
as Yusuf said, but coming back to the issue of equality in partnerships, my question becomes, when we are creating the resources, or when we are allocating the resources, are we thinking equality? When we are releasing resources, for example, to Africa, what is the nature of relationships that we're engaging in? And when African governments are receiving aid from the multilateral donors, are they thinking quality, or they are they framing their receiving in what this means to Africa, to development, to the aftermath? Or it's just about the now? We need money now, we need 8 billion now, we need 5 billion now, at whatever cost, not thinking about the impact that it's leaving. But not only that, so for example, with that aid that comes to Africa, and there's always attachments to it, attachments that often leave Africa worse off than it was. So for me, before
Hello, Nyeri? Nyeri? Seem to be having a bit of a challenge with your network there. So just try to ensure we sort that out. And I'm going to, obviously, as we continue the conversation, I'm going to ask now Ms. Becky to come in. I know you're in media. Yusuf did allude to the fact that your media is a critical one in terms of partnerships for achieving sustainable development goals. But the opening submission is really addressing some of the things that Yusuf was.
All right. Thanks, McDonald, and also thank you to Mr. Al Amin Yasaf. That was a really nice presentation, and you did touch on all the important points that we need to consider in being sustainable. Now, when you look at the SDGs, especially in the African continent, the key word for us as Africans when it comes to SDGs is the word sustainable. We seem not to be having any of those development goals that are sustainable because we are not starting the things, or if we do start, it's not sustainable because there's no balance, there's no follow-up. For example, we are doing this live right now. We don't even have a sustainable Wi-Fi network. And if anything, being in lockdown with Corona, the lesson that we should have learned in all the countries, especially in Africa, is to have a sustainable Wi-Fi connection so that the media is able to do their job. Now, I report for the BBC as well, and I discovered that other countries are able to tell their stories, especially when it comes to business. But as Africans, we are a little bit afraid to tell our business stories because we don't have sustainable solutions to keep our companies in business. So as long as the company doesn't have like outside influence or international influence, we don't have a sustainable way to keep the businesses afloat. So first of all, we need to have a media that is going to report, like comment that is fair and true, to let us know as Africans what we can do to make our goals sustainable. Start from home. Like since we've been in lockdown, what have we done as individuals to make sure that any of those SDGs, not really focusing on the 17th one, the one that we're talking about today, from the very top, what has been done to actually make sure that all those things that they want to zero in on have been achieved? We seem to be dodging and missing the mark. Nyari mentioned about the women. She's passionate about that. And most of these things seem to be like a touch and go. It's never a consistent set up. They will start it, but never follow up. So if there's no follow up, there's no way it's going to be sustainable. And we also are afraid of change in the media. If you look at the media industry in Zimbabwe, I'm sure Tafi can attest to this, in the digital era, we are slowly catching up, but we can do so much better. But we are slowly catching up because we are afraid to try new things. We are afraid, what if it doesn't work? But what if it does work? So if as media, the platform that we have can actually assist for other partnerships to happen with other countries other than the ones in Africa, and also have other countries in the Northern Triangle working with those in the Southern Triangle, if we can have a media that is consistent and sustainable, I don't see why media shouldn't be at the top of the list, as Dr. or Mr. Al-Amin had mentioned, that the media plays a really big role, but media is it's slowing down. We are somehow not getting to the point where we need to be. So for me, in terms of media, it's we need to catch up. We need to do things that are sustainable. We need to do things that we follow up on. If we're going to start a trend, we need to follow up on it and make sure that we don't go back to the way things were happening, and just accept change. For any of these SDGs to actually happen, for us to have the 2030 that we want, we need to follow up and accept the change. So those are my opening remarks on this.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Becky, for coming through and just sharing that with us. Now, I'm going to go to Ms. Mangwana Jasper, the Fresh Prince from the Zimbabwe Youth for Sustainable Development Goals.
Thanks so much, McDonald. I think I agree with quite a what has been said by other speakers. But generally, what we look at the Sustainable Development Goals is the partnership is the key issue, because you can't live in isolation. You can't accomplish anything alone. That's the reason why they say if you want to go fast, you rather go alone. But if you want to go far, which is the sustainable aspect of this conversation, you have to go together as in partnership. So I believe the media people play a critical role, and also they've leveraged to all critical and important offices with the fact that if they up their game in actually spreading the good news about the SDGs, Zimbabwe could be in a different position. Why? Because a lot of people listen to them. If you're a media person, no one who actually can afford to ignore you. But it's unfortunate that at times maybe these might not be the key issues which people that are in the media space see as critical issues to address. Of all the news that we receive each and every day, we believe there should be something about sustainable development, about the development happening in communities, about what young people are doing. But as partnerships are coming aboard, I believe the private sector has got a role to play, the business community, the non-governmental organizations, the traditional leaders themselves. They might be chiefs, they are also partners in promoting this development agenda, because the development has to include everyone, because we don't want to leave anyone behind. So partnership of goals is meant to ensure that all the 16 goals that we have, they are accomplished, because they cannot be done in isolation. Either is it SDG 1 or no poverty. Everyone has a role to play, because we are pushing for an economy that will need to see working. If you can't even talk of gender equality, right? Because we can't leave men behind, neither can we leave the women or the youth. So the 17 goal is to make sure that we can also channel our resources together, because we believe in partnership. You might not have everything. You might have the financial side, but you might not have the technical skills. So the moment partnerships come aboard, it means we work together going in the same direction, because at times development has a lot to do with the direction we are taking and the speed. So that's the reason why partnership is critical. So I believe the 17th goal and the media people, you are very important people in the current space that we have, over and above the digital space that we have, because social media has taken a lot of attention in the past days. COVID has taught us that you can actually start your own media at home, and we've seen a lot of social media bloggers who are quite doing very well as far as advocating for SDGs. But I believe with the mainstream media, we can still move together. That's my sentence.
Thank you very much, Jasper, for that. And we'll now get to Tafi, your statements, your sentiments.
Okay, with me, I'm not just a digital marketing person, but I'm actually a digital literacy advocate. I teach digital marketing at the Marketers Association. And obviously, the thing that jumped at me the most when I started teaching is I found that women weren't really, there's such a widening digital gender gap between the men and the women. And the stats currently in sub-Saharan Africa, it's only 18% of women that have access to the internet compared with 25% of men. That's according to the International Telecommunication Union. And then women's participation in the digital industry as end users and developers as well, it's just like a 30%, they just form a mere 30% of content creators, coders, and entrepreneurs. But then we all know, in contrast, that women's presence in the informal economy is between 60 and 80% of Africa's total economic activity. So can you see the gap that's there? So even industries, so there has to be some sort of connection now, like as we're trying to take digital literacy to everybody, including the women in the informal sector and the downtrodden. We still need industry as well, the innovation and the stuff, to also partner with these empowerment programs and help us to educate Africa, because we're still very, very much behind in terms of digital development. So I think the post-COVID-19 moment now is to ensure that those of us in the developing world have a seat at the table and are able to harness the digital gains. And then I've also seen the force of partnerships. Like when I looked at the 17 SDGs, I realized a lot of these things are already at play, but people just don't know that they're already participating. Where you see somebody crowdfund for people to send kids in the rural areas to school. But I think it'll be more effective. Some of these kids that come to those schools are hungry. They've walked like 5 kilometers. So imagine if somebody who's doing a crowdfund for sending 30 kids to school is partnering with the World Food UNF, the World Food Program. If they partner with the World Food Program, it means those 30 kids' fees is paid, and they're getting porridge every week. So they're coming to school, they're walking like 5 kilometers, but they're not hungry. So I think that's where we now need to bridge that gap, where we've got awesome initiatives taking place, but it's not synchronized. So if we were to maybe come together, educate people a little bit that, no, look, you know what, if you were to partner with this corporate, or if you were to partner with the UN, if you were to partner with an NGO, we can even do better. We wouldn't just end at educating, but would also be feeding. Would be meeting at least maybe 3 or 4 SDGs at once. That's it in a nutshell.
All right, thank you very much, Tafi, for that. Now, I'm just going to quickly come back to you, Nyali, and get to find out. I know you didn't finish your submission, but I'm going to, factor in a question here, Nyali. You are a women's rights activist, and you stand for the rights of women, and partnership is a key thing. Now, let's talk about this social. I don't know whether it's a myth. I think it's a bit prevalent. Where I've often been in circles where I hear that women among themselves some of their worst own enemies in terms of helping each other. And I don't know whether it's a misnomer or maybe there is some fact to it. If it's a fact, what do you reckon needs to be done? You'll be in a perfect position to actually tell us, since you're advocate for the rights of women.
Thank you very much, McDonald. I'll start with your question, and then I'll go to posit what I was going to earlier on. And I think that's a lie. That's a big lie that the world has told women. The enemy of women is patriarchy, and patriarchy is the belief. It's actually a setup where men have set up rules that they force women to enforce against each other, enforce against community, enforce against themselves. So the problem is if you look at everything that's happening in the lives of women, whether women are harassing each other or whatever, there is a man behind it. And usually, because men are holders of resources, women are pretty much put in a corner, and men are holders of power, whether it's within the family, power, whether it's within the community, power that it's within the country, women are having to be forced to do certain things. They are being asked to be good girls. There is rewards for good girls, and good girls, being a good girl for a woman or a girl is when you're doing what a man wants you to do, and a man is the one who holds up resources, who's going to make decisions about who is going to get which opportunity. And also we have been framed to never question things. When a woman questions things, you are labeled with a lot of things, mainly by men, but also they cause other women to say things about each other, and also the things that people just do without thinking, that perpetuates those negative stereotypes against women, is that, oh, women cannot spend a day without talking about each other, or women are the most gossipers. We know that men gossip. We know that men are competitive against each other. We know that men can kill each other. The reason we have problems right now in the world is that men will not concede defeat. Let's talk about the United States right now. What's going on? Men
We seem to be losing you again,
actually
and we kind of lose you when you're about to get to the gist, or to a very interesting part of the story.
Can I try to go on can you put me on audio only, please?
Okay, that's fine.
So if you can cancel my mic and put me on audio, I think that would help.
No problem. Yeah, you can go ahead.
That's better. I want to delete. That's better, right? Can you hear me better?
Yeah, you can continue. You're mentioning about the fact of the interesting thing that's happening in the United States.
Yes, we look at men who are the sole problems of the global problems, the bigger problems, whether it's famine, it's hunger, it's men refusing to take responsibility, or men refusing to concede defeat in election, whatever you think about. At the center of our biggest problems are men, and now we focus on little problems.
If I might jump in there, and I see my fellow panelists smiling at your notion, because isn't that too? And outright or too left a statement to say that the source of the problems in this world are men? Isn't it a humanity thing?
So no, I think it's real that if you want to look at where the biggest problems are, men are fighting. Yeah. You look at wars, who's fighting? Who causes the wars is the men who are fighting for power among themselves. So what I was going to say is, I'm not being exaggerating. Even if you want to be real, you look at any war in this world, whatever war we're fighting, there's never a woman who starts a war. It's the men who are fighting over their egos or anything else. And the women and children and the vulnerable groups in the communities are often the victims of that. That's why
for the sake of our time, Gary, and I know you're very passionate about this particular subject, but for the sake of our time, I know some of my fellow panelists are itching to say something. Just by saw you smile there.
McDonald.
Our time. Yeah, I'm going to definitely come back to you. But for the sake of our time, let me just quickly get some responses from the things that you have said. Jasper, I saw you were itching to come in there.
Thanks so much. I'm not so sure the men that will be fighting, are they not fighting for women? So it's very difficult to conclude on my sentiments to say that the problems facing the world, they come from men. I think also it's also a perception that we also had maybe as an African origin, that the chiefs usually used to rule, the people who used to decide over the people are men. In general, maybe if you look at the people that are running in political offices, are men. But I believe as we are running towards gender equality, as we promote inclusion of everyone, women also have a real contribution to play, because whatever attitude you see in a man presenting before a lot of people, remember that the source also coming from the woman who's at home, because they always salute, if you do that before the people, how can people humiliate you like that? You should show them that you are the man. So you can't really take everything and say it's about the men, but it's about everyone. That's the reason why we need to partner. We need to partner in a way that we can all play our part for the development of our nation and the continent.
Thank you, Jasper. Ms. Becky, I saw you as well. You wanted to come in there.
Right. So, I think I'm muted. Hold on, one sec.
We can hear you, Becky.
Can
Yeah,
you
there
hear
you go.
me?
Yes, we
Fantastic.
can.
It looked like I had muted. Okay, so what Nyari is saying is absolutely true. Society has taught women that you are not supposed to get along. You are supposed to fight. You can't let someone else do better than you, and it has become something that has been passed on from generation to generation. One woman tells another woman, and then before you know it, we are at conflict by ourselves. But like she said, if you trace back, I doubt that it was a woman who started the whole concept of women don't get along. Now, if anything is to happen, there needs to come a point where we say, why are we doing what we are doing? Why are we focusing on the SDGs? What is it for? The only reason why it's not working out to some extent, although Tafi did state that, somehow we are participating and not really knowing because there's no clear communication as to this is what has been done. The only reason why we are not progressing at the rate that we should be is because someone somewhere has become power hungry and doesn't want it to be seen or known that this is the progress that has happened, or I can't allow this organization to do better than me, so let me fight them, or I can't allow this to happen, so let me stop it. Now, if we all come to a point where we are saying, like what Tafi said, we can have 3 or 4 SDGs being covered if people just come to a point where they agree. So McDonald's changed that narrative. It's not there. Don't ever ask that question again. It's not
Thank
there
you.
because
The point is, I was also going to say, don't stop asking us those questions because they perpetuate
yes.
the things that are not there.
So if you keep asking us, why don't women get along? We do. We get along. It's just that we have been misinformed. There was someone I was listening to this past week, and they said, I'm not afraid of being wrong, but I'm afraid of being deceived. Because being deceived means you made a choice on an informed decision that was not correct. So someone started something and deceived every woman that you are not supposed to get along. And then we don't get along. Why should I not be able to work with Nyari and Tafi to focus on an SDG and keep moving? Why can't I work with them? Why can't I do it? Mr. Almin mentioned that media is a powerful tool here. Why can't I, as Miss Becky, a multimedia broadcaster, meet up with Tafi, meet up with Nyari, whom we all know is an advocate for women? Tafi knows how to work the digital space. I know how to push numbers. Why can't we work, the 3 of us? Because someone is trying to stop a certain thing from happening. So we just need to cancel all of that. So don't ask again. I repeat, don't ask.
I won't. Tavi, your sentiments.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. It's always pushed by the agenda is actually like what Nyari said, it's more patriarchy than the women themselves. Yes, even in a work setup, you find that there's when women are up against each other, usually there's also a man behind it, pushing or fueling it in the background. So yeah, I'm 100% in agreement. I think women can work together.
All right, fantastic. I know we're taking a bit of a rabbit show. It has to do with the SDG on gender, but I'm sure because it's pertinent like that, it just springs up into the conversation. But getting a few contributions here, and I'll address this to you, Yusuf. Getting on our Facebook platform there. In Zimbabwe, do you reckon that we are on course to meet these SDGs? Hello, Yusuf? Seem to be having a bit of a challenge there, but all right. I'm going to pose the same question to you, Jasper, because I know you're very actively involved in advocating for the achievement or attainment of these SDGs. In your opinion, from a scale of 1 to 10, where do you reckon we are as a nation and why?
Thanks, Mati. I'll give ourselves a five so that at least we don't kill the spirit at the same time. We don't underrate what we've done as a nation. Though commitment to Agenda 2030 is something that is quite big in terms of the strides and what is required. Also noting that we're already in the decade of action, which means the next 10 years from now until 2030, we have to work overtime and accelerate the decade of action for each and every government or any stakeholder that is involved to make sure that we implement the global goals to the fullest. Because some of the requirements and the targets, they might be beyond our expectations as African people, because we always believe that if I get food on the table, that's more than enough. Some of these issues might just come along. But I believe as Zimbabwe, we're not really out of track. But if we just channel our energy and our efforts in one direction, where we bring in our finances together, where we bring in marginalized communities, where the young people are the biggest resources Zimbabwe and Africa have in the attainment of the SDGs. Why? Because they have the energy, McDonald. If you want to develop a nation, the people that will dig the pits are the young people. When we had problems during the colonial era, the young people are the ones that went to war to make sure that we take Zimbabwe to where it is. So we also employ and call upon all the agencies that are working in Zimbabwe. Can it be the United Nations, the civil society, the government, the parliamentarians, the traditional chiefs, the religious people? Let's step in young people so that we can harness their energy towards the development of Zimbabwe, because with their energy and their
okay. So sorry, I have a bit of latency here.
Okay.
Sorry, I have a bit of latency. It seems your voice is delaying to reach me. I hope you can hear me now.
You can come in.
We can hear you.
Right.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear. All right. Whilst we're sorting out that latency issue, Jasper, you can just continue and just bring your contribution here.
I was saying that the greatest resources Africa has, or Zimbabwe has, or the greatest force or investment that they have are the young people, because they constitute 67% of our nation as a country. And there's in Africa, Africa is a youthful continent. Whoever is in a leadership position or who would want to see develop Zimbabwe achieve the 2030 agenda of becoming upper middle income economy by 2030, we have to invest in our young people. You have to give them the platform so that the energy that they have and the innovations and whatever weird ideas they have, they're channeled towards the developmental agenda of the nation. Whatever media space that we have, let's give them the platform. Whatever the banks that we have, whatever investments that we have, let's give the priority to the young people, because they are a resource which any other continent does not have. Look at Canada. They're busy recruiting young people for their next generation of employees and workers in Canada, because they're seeing themselves running out of the employees to work for them who are this youthful. But Africa has not only young people, but educated young people that are competent, Mr. McDonald. So I believe if we want to move together in the achievement that we need, young people have to play a critical and center stage, because any developmental agenda that excludes the youth is not sustainable.
That's true.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much, just for that contribution. Now, our time is fast running out on us, but I know that there are many things that we all wanted to say or to express, and we did take a bit of a rough show, but I'm just going to quickly ask us. I know Nyari has already left the studio. She's I'm so much used to saying the studio. This virtual reality has done something to us, and we still reckon
it's a virtual studio.
Virtual studio, if you want. Thank you. So we're just going to have our final submissions, and I'm going to start off with you, Tafi.
Well, my final words are: we definitely can meet our SDGs in Zim if we maybe create a platform where people that are running, there are a lot of initiatives that are already taking place. So if there was like a central point or a place where people can network and see where they can partner together, we would be able to kill more in terms of meeting our SDGs, especially in alleviating poverty and obviously the gender issue, which we covered quite a lot here. So I just think that industry or business also needs to come in as well. They have a role to play. I mean, you saw what happened during the Cyclone Idai. The corporates really came through. So I just think that all those people that are doing phenomenal things, sending orphans to school, teaching women. I remember volunteering for somebody who teaches young women in the high density how to use computers. And I think if we had more of those people come together in one place, we'd be able to kill more bombs. Those are my last words.
All right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Miss Becky?
Thank you, Atafi. I'm 100% behind you on that one. And if people can just remove the focus from how much money can I make from this, I think covering a lot of SDGs will happen. The issue that we're also having is that people have become so money oriented, they forget the goal at the end of the day, that this is what we want to achieve. And also the point that she raised, that if there can be a platform that the general public can just know what is going on. I remember when the launch of these SDGs happened, we were there at Rainbow Towers as the youth. We wanted to know what is happening. And like I said at the beginning with my opening remarks, that it's the key word there is sustainable. Are we following up on what we said we are going to do? We can start, but what are we doing to make it sustainable? So if there can be a platform that people can go to, instead of Googling and going onto UN, trying to find out what are SDGs, what is happening in Zimbabwe, there should be a platform that is constantly posting back again to the media. There should be a platform that is constantly letting people know that this is how far we have gone as Zimbabwe with the SDGs. We have partnered with this country. We've partnered with these people. Our technology is at this level. Our finances, this is what's happening. But there's no consistency with the sustainability of the development goals. So if we can have a platform where we can keep up with what is happening, I'm sure we can cover more than one at a time. We really can. And with that, I close.
All right. Jasper, I'm going to ask you to come through and just give us your final remarks.
Thank you so much, McDonald. I also agree that we're not really out of COVID. Has actually also affected our developments towards that, because we have to refocus our energy and where we're going. But I believe Zimbabwe were in the right direction in terms of policies where the government has come on board. I think the policies are quite good, but our worry is on the implementation on the ground. But we are not very far away. If we work together, we will definitely achieve the global goals, especially if we give opportunity to young people to have their innovations and ideas and the energy to also contribute towards this development. It will take us very, very far. If you want to go fast, you just go alone. But if you want to go far, we have to go together. And we know that Zimbabwe prioritized 10 of the SDGs. Actually, recently there was a voluntary national progress report review which was done, where the miles what Zimbabwe has done so far and where we think is still lacking. But I believe we still have a long way to go. And these partnerships, like the one that we've had now, meeting Miss Becky here, you yourself, of course, and the Fresh Prince of Zimute SDG, it's a good thing for us that we can still move on. Thank you so much.
the fresh prince of Zimute SDGs, very interesting day. And now, of course, to just cap it off from the UNESCO, I'm going to ask Al-Amin Yusuf to come in and just tell us his final remarks. Now, Yusuf, you can start, but you can also just remove your phone because we can hear you clearly.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Actually, my final remarks is that yes, I know some of the speakers here have spoken about COVID and the need to reorient resources and everything. So based on COVID, again, let me go back to COVID. We have seen a new phenomenon. We have seen misinformation, disinformation, and now we're even seeing the media changing the course of elections. So what I'm saying is, if we want to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, we really need to invest in the media. And by investing in the media, I don't mean only financial resources, but also capacity strengthening, policies. And above all, we need to invest in our citizens to be media and information literate. Because at the moment, what the citizens are consuming from the media can actually lead to either the delay of the achievement of Sustainable Development Goals or even fast achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. We need to ensure that our citizens can analyze the content that they receive. They need to identify misinformation and disinformation. They need to identify lies, and they need to sift what is good gender-sensitive information, conflict-sensitive information, and also development information that they can use for their day-to-day needs. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Yusuf. And that's the webinar that we had today in this 4-part series where we are focusing on the attainment of SDGs. And remember, for you to play a part in changing the world and changing your world, you can do what you have with where you are. Also, just take time to fill in the UN 75 1-minute survey. So just take a minute of your time, but your contribution will aid in a very huge way in terms of bringing positive change to the world. My name is McDonald Gura. I was with Al-Amin Yusuf from UNESCO, Miss Becky, radio and TV personality, as well as Tafi El Botora, the digital day, Jasper Mangwana, the Fresh Prince of the Zimbabwe Youth for SDGs, as well as Nyari Mashaya Mombe with us. And so let's make a date for next Friday, same time between 11 and 12, as we tackle another SDG and we continue having this conversation. Many thanks for being with us. Please do take care of yourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for taking time to be with me on this particular webinar.
Thank you.
All right, fantastic. Goodbye.